So, E3 happened last week and there's a lot to be excited for. Upcoming games like The Division, The Order 1886, Zelda, and about 100 other games have been absorbed by our eyeballs, and it seems like now we're hitting that sweet spot in this generation where we're finally seeing why we bought these new consoles in the first place. We're getting new games that look so unbelievably stunning that they just could not have existed on previous generation hardware. But where do we draw the line in regard to visual expectations in video games? This might seem like a shallow question to ask when discussing upcoming titles that look incredibly fun to play, but that's not all they're showing. It's been drilled into our brains that these new games are gonna exceed our wildest expectations in regards to visual presentation. And while I certainly hope that's true, I'm more than a bit skeptical. Bullshots have existed as long as the industry has. Doctored images that are manipulated to look better than the finished product so that we get more excited about a product than we might have been otherwise. Some are worse than others, like the infamous Madden NFL 2006 bullshots we were fed, but even great games like Far Cry 3 have provided us with promotional images that look excessively better than the product we were given. And even in 2014, where games are looking better than they ever have, we've been given something that's even worse than bullshots: flat out bullshit gameplay demos. At E3 2012, we were shown a gameplay video of Watch Dogs for the first times, and it looked glorious. At the time, the PlayStation 4 and the Xbox One hadn't even been announced, but based on the visual fidelity alone, we all knew that they were coming. Fast forward to 2014, and Watch Dogs is now on shelves and looks significantly worse than we were led to believe about 2 years ago. At the risk of downplaying the game itself, I'll say this. I, along with many other people, would have not even been remotely as excited for Watch Dogs if it hadn't been for how great that demo looked. The whole reason it was the darling of E3 that year was because of that fact and that fact alone. If it were strictly based on the premise, then Sleeping Dogs would have been a sleeper hit that year because it was just as good of an open world game as Watch Dogs. And on a side note, I just realized that both of those games have the word dogs in the title. That's weird. But getting back to the point, while Watch Dogs looked and turned out to be a good game, my initial excitement was over how beautiful it looked in motion. And that part of the presentation was not delivered upon, and now I refuse to believe anything I see that makes me feel that it might be too beautiful to be true. For example, The Division. It looks unbelievably great. Also, notably another Ubisoft title. Even the E3 2012 Bullshot demo of Watch Dogs doesn't look as fantastic as the demos of The Division we've been shown recently. I refuse to believe that it'll look anything like that on my PlayStation 4. Far Cry 4, also a Ubisoft title, looks amazing and I can't wait to play it because I love the franchise, but I remain skeptical of whether or not the gameplay shown is actually indicative of the final product. The Order 1886. Actually, that game will probably look just as good as they say it will because it runs at a shit frame rate and also uses half the screen. And then there's Zelda, a game that I personally think looks, while not photoreal, the best of any AAA game of E3. Nintendo presented a half-cartoon and half-realistic fantasy-looking environment in the new Zelda game, and that looks insane. And while Nintendo has made a number of mistakes this generation, they haven't lied to me about how the games are gonna look. I also know what they're capable of because I've played Mario Kart 8 and Super Mario 3D World. Those are two stellar-looking games that, at some points, look like they're too good for the machine they're running on. And the upcoming Zelda title looks even better. And while I would typically be skeptical about a game that has me this excited about its presentation, Nintendo has earned my trust and I have no reason to doubt them. So why can't more publishers be like that? The outcry of gamers who bought Watch Dogs and Dark Souls 2 should say something about the state of bullshit like this. Games look great, and I want to play great looking games, but I don't want to feel lied to after paying $60 for a game that just looks okay. And hey, don't get me wrong. Looks aren't everything, in real life and in games. And in games, gameplay comes first, before story, before visuals, before everything. Just like teenagers on Facebook, video game publishers show their insecurity by doctoring their images and straight up lying about themselves. Well, Ubisoft, that doesn't work for teenagers and it won't work for you. Lying to me about how great Watch Dogs looks doesn't make me think it looks any better when I see it in person. So how about we cut the bullshit and stop it with the bullshots? I know a lot of people are thinking maybe it's not a good idea to act like Nintendo right now, but you fucking should. They respect their audience, and what they show you is what you get. Even when faced with the realities of the market, they still haven't pulled one over on us yet. So there. Take everything you're shown by publishers with a grain of salt, because if they haven't earned your trust, then don't give it to them. Because quite frankly, they probably don't deserve it. Do your research, make informed decisions, and above all else, make us think about it. we're all connected and rally quicker than ever. Oh, and EA, we all know you're a little chunkier than you look in that picture. Those camera tricks don't work on me.